Have you ever considered that beyond this visible world are unseen forces acting behind the scene? Prophecies prior to the US election. So we'll look very quickly at what conventional wisdom said prior to the election and then look at the actual prophecies themselves. In the run-up to the election, I should say elections, both the national and the Republican and Democratic primaries, the site I went to get information on polling was this Real Clear Politics. What I like about it, it does something called a poll of polls, which basically means it gathers poll information together from existing polls that are done by organizations like Bloomberg, Fox News, CNN, LA Times, you name it, and it averages it out to get an average across all those polls. And this is the article that they put out on November the 7th, the day before the election. Poll position where Clinton Trump stand on election eve. So what do the polls say now? As of Monday morning, polls show a modest lead for Hillary Clinton. She's ahead of Donald Trump in the Real Clear Politics four-way national average with all four candidates by 2.2 percentage points and by 2 points in the two-way average. And of course it's an electoral college, which means it's state-based. So even more importantly, it says here Clinton also leads in state polls. If every state voted according to its RCP average, she would win with 297 electoral votes to Trump's 241, surpassing the needed 270. So at the day before, she is just a little bit ahead. It mentions here that a few weeks ago, Clinton led in national polls by as much as 7 points, and while her lead has declined, she has nonetheless led in the RCP average for the past 98 days since the nominating conventions came to a close. So from the point the conventions ended and the actual campaigning began between the two leading candidates, Clinton and Trump, she was ahead the entire time. So anyone guessing who would win and following the polls would certainly favor her. A little bit further down here, put something of interest. It says, that's why predictive models at sites like 538, The Upshot, and the Huffington Post, despite differences in assumptions and how they're built, all give Clinton a win probability over 50%. 64%, 84%, and 98.1% respectively, but don't say that a Democratic victory is a 100% certainty. So obviously you couldn't say 100%, but even at 64%, you're pretty much saying it's 2 to 1, the chance that Clinton would win. And well, 98.1% from the Huffington Post is also not 100%, but it's the next best thing. So clearly from a polling point of view, and millions of dollars are spent on getting this information, Clinton was pretty much a sure bet. And the other group of people I like to look at when trying to work on predictions are betting agencies, simply because they have to put their money where their mouth is. The pollsters have their reputation at stake, the betting agencies have their finances at stake, so you can they're both high stakes, and I don't think either of them would want to intentionally be incorrect. But let's see what they did, and I'm just going to look at one very quickly. It's a well-known betting site called Betfair. It is the same date, the day before the election. They have a picture of Hillary Clinton. Will she be the next president of the United States? And the odds they are giving are 1.2 for Clinton. Donald Trump, you could have made a lot of money if you'd known for certain. They're basically putting it at 83% chance that Clinton will win, and only a 17% chance that that Donald Trump will win. So again, they got it wrong basically. They didn't lose their reputation so much as money, and they would have lost a lot of money. It says further down here how with more than 110 million pounds now traded on the next present market, it stands a very good chance of breaking the all-time Betfair record of 127 million set by the Brexit market in June, which also would have taken a lot of money away from them if they'd also followed the polls on that, which I'm sure they did. they would have made, uh, these are record bets, and they'd have made record losses, I would imagine. And even the people putting money on were voting for Clinton, obviously, backing the favourite as given by the odds and as given by the polling. So everything's consistent as far as anyone is concerned. The next US president is more than likely going to be Hillary Clinton, and therefore if you're going to make up a prophecy, your most likely way of doing that would be to say that Clinton is going to win, which is really great for us, as I've said, because that means we'd catch you out at this point, and you'd certainly be putting yourself out there. If we just look at these odds, 17%, if you claim to be a prophet or prophetic in any way and were giving a prophecy that Donald Trump would win. So let's have a look at who got the prophecy wrong. In other words, who predicted that Hillary Clinton would be the next president, which we've said is the obvious thing to do. And the goal of this is not to name and shame. Obviously, if you make a prophecy and you put it out there on YouTube, those were your words. You cannot deny you said it. And we're told to judge prophecy. So I have nothing personal against these particular men, as it happens to be. Obviously, I'd be skeptical, to say the least, if they were giving other prophecies. But the amazing thing, really, and I was looking everywhere to find people who were predicting Clinton would win, and when I say predicting, I mean in a prophetic way, and I could only find two people. This is before the election, and it's pretty much the same now. I could only find two people with any number of followers. The one I'd never heard of, and it's this man here. His name is his title is Prophet Brian Cairn, or Khan, C-A-R-N. He may have to adjust that title now, but I suspect he won't. I've no idea who he is. I did listen to what he said, and he has a fair number of people listening to him. Not massive, but a fair number. I'm sure there are many people with maybe a few hundred followers or something who've predicted that Clinton would win, but I haven't found them. I'd have to search deeper because of the number of views influencing where you come up on a search on YouTube or on Google. But to be honest, I'm trying to look at the big names, if you can put it that way. No idea again who Brian Khan is, but he certainly considers himself to be a prophet. The man I did know is this man here, T.B. Joshua, Nigerian, and he did predict that Clinton would win the election. He took down that particular prediction when it failed, and I read somewhere that he had to put it up. More importantly, I saw his explanation, which was very unfortunate. He pretty much was saying that because he'd predicted that Clinton would win, that Christians in the United States suddenly started praying because they were now concerned about a Clinton win, and that's why things changed, which, as we've seen from both the polling and the betting, is nonsense, because everyone knew that the things looked like a Clinton win. They certainly didn't need a prophecy from a Nigerian prophet. For all I know, everything else he has ever prophesied has come true. I've absolutely no idea, but he certainly got this one wrong, and I'd say his response is wrong, but that is all I can say about him. So let's look at the prophecies which were correct in their prediction of who the president would be. And for this, I have a totally opposite problem. There are way too many people saying that Trump would be president, which is, I think it's a good thing that most of the predictions so many are correct. And because of that, I'm only going to look at three of them. The three that I thought had the biggest impact. That could be because of how clear they were. It could be just the number of people that viewed it. And the first one I want to look at is this guy here. I'll highlight his name because it's a bit hard to pronounce, but it's something like Sadhu Sundar Selvaraj. And he is, as you might guess, an Indian man. He's been around for a while, and he really amazed me, to be honest, because he was the first one that I saw clearly just prophesying. And you'll see from the actual prophecy that he's very emphatic. It's not a case of God sort of gave me the impression that Trump would win. He just basically is 100% emphatic. And I'd been following the polls at the stage that I watched this in 2016, and I was thinking, wow, you are really putting yourself out there. We saw earlier that the day before, the predictions were sort of 17% chance for Trump. That's when the gap had narrowed, but when this prophecy came out, it would have been less. I don't know, 10 or maybe less percent. Certainly not something you'd want to put a prophecy out about if you were going to base it on those odds. So he really put himself out there. He was either going to be clearly a false prophet or an actual prophet. Obviously, when a prophecy is correct, it doesn't mean that person is a prophet. There only were two real options, but again, the odds are such that it's, if you're going to emphatically put it out there, I think it does say something. Just a warning. You can probably see his face peeking out here. He does look almost mystical thanks to his traditional dress, and I think it's a long hair and the beard that add to that. But he is a Christian, and what you're about to hear is something that he spoke at a church.
I was caught up in the spirit, and I found my soul standing before the council, the very council where I always used to go. And I saw Father Abraham, and I was standing beside him, and I was very, very surprised to see Donald Trump come and stand in that room. And this is what I was told. They said Trump will become president. Wait. Listen to the whole thing before you clap your hands. He will be used to clean and purify the nation. As hard as he is, he has been prepared for this. As Cyrus was used to discipline Israel and then to restore Israel, likewise, Trump will be used in the US. He will be used to curb violence. He will be God's mouth and hand for this nation. So,
and you can see there's nothing subtle about what he had to say. I just want to point out a few things. Just the use of the word used. He'll be used to clean and purify the nation. As Cyrus was used to discipline Israel, likewise Trump will be used in the US. So it's very much a thing of God using Trump. It doesn't say that he's been called or that he's raising up a Christian. It's purely a man that God is using, and the reference there was to Cyrus, and he comes up in pretty much, in fact, I think all the other videos that I'll be showing you, he comes up frequently as a comparison for Trump, and I will look at that in one of the other videos. Next up we have Dr. Lance Wallnow, and this is him speaking on the Jim Bakker show. I'll bring it down. You can see Jim Bakker's show on the 21st of October 2016, and in the little part of the video you can see, I'm not starting at the beginning, the part that's just been played already, he's explained how he went to meet Donald Trump with a group of evangelicals, and this was during when he went to go meet Donald Trump, it was during the primaries, so Donald Trump was trying to become the candidate for the Republicans, and God spoke to Dr. Lance Wallnow and told him that Trump was God's chaos candidate, which is a chaos candidate is a reference to something Jeb Bush had said during that Republican runoff. And at this point in the video, he's being invited back to see Donald Trump, and I'll let him speak from here.
The next trip I have to go meet with him, before I go up there, the Lord says, Isaiah 45. Now, I'm not one of those people who hears the Lord all the time, so I'm not like a prophet that every week has a word from heaven. And so when I do hear, it's an unusual thing. And I said, Isaiah 45. Now, typically when a preacher is quoting a verse, I act like I know what it is, and then I look it up later. But I couldn't fool the Lord. I didn't know what Isaiah 45 was. So I said, Isaiah 45. So I went and grabbed my Bible, and I open it up, and I flip it open to Isaiah 45, and I'm reading these words, and I'm saying, Thus saith the Lord to Cyrus, whom I have taken by the right hand. Thus says the Lord to Cyrus, his anointed, who I've taken by the right hand, to subdue nations before him, to loose the loins of kings, to open doors before him. And I thought, Isaiah 45 is the next president, the 45th president. And I go, grab Google, and I go, look, well, Barack Obama was 44th president. And I thought, well, but he was reelected. But you see, you maintain the same jersey even if you get reelected. So it's 44 twice. The next president is 45. And I said, oh my gosh. Nobody at that point, when I was hearing that, was thinking that Donald Trump was anointed to be the 45th president, let alone a Cyrus. And so I'm asking the Lord, I'm saying, Cyrus. So I'm studying Cyrus. Cyrus was prophesied like 100 to 120 years before he was born. God had called Cyrus into existence. This is, catch this, a secular ruler, not a Jew. And so this starts messing with my head, because I'm saying, I like Huckabee, and I got friends, all of my pastor buddies are Ted Cruz, great Christian, Father preaches Seven Mountains, preaches my message. And I'm in Texas, and I'm thinking, well, we got all these great evangelicals running and people that love Jesus and are praying. Why in the world would the Lord be looking at Cyrus? Well, because God chooses secular leaders who are anointed. And sometimes, I hate to say this, but if God is trying to wake up his church, he won't pick Joel Osteen for president.
So Joel Osteen is the pastor of the biggest church in the US. He's referring to at the end there. So once again, you see a man standing up on the 21st of October, and he's talking about this election as if it's already over. He's absolutely adamant that Donald Trump is going to win. He's standing up in front of people. He's gone on a TV show saying it. And he has a book, God's Chaos Candidate, which says exactly the same thing. So I find that fascinating, that there's such confidence, people putting their entire reputation on this. They're not just guessing, they are absolutely convinced about this, or they wouldn't do it. And you saw the reference to Cyrus there in Isaiah 45. He is a king that is mentioned in the Bible before he was born. He's famous in history for allowing nations and people that he conquered to continue with their own religion, and he's believed to be one of the first to bring in human rights. And under him, the wall they started to rebuild it in Jerusalem, and he was used by God as Isaiah prophesied that he would be, but he was secular. And here Dr. Lance Wallner uses the word anointed, not in the sense that he was called and he was obedient, but in the sense that Cyrus was anointed, which means that God had put in him everything that he needed to carry out what God had predestined for him to do. So there we have another reference to King Cyrus, and we hear the views and the predictions and a prophecy, but in this case it wasn't a thus says the Lord, it was more a case of him hearing from God and putting the pieces together and presenting it confidently like he did. And finally we have this guy. This is Clement Klement. He's a South African, but he's been ministering in the US for many years now. He actually died not long after the election, about a week or two afterwards, and he'd been sick for quite a while, so he hadn't put anything out in the months running up to the election. In fact, the two clips I'm going to be showing you are from 2007. He's someone that I was in two minds as to whether to put him on, but I did say the most influential or having the biggest impact. He certainly comes up over and over in any videos looking at prophecies concerning the election, and I'm literally in two minds. I could go either way, and I'm not going to tell you what my concerns or misgivings are before we see the two clips, but I'll tell you afterwards, so you get to see the two clips without my thoughts in your mind. So here we go, as I said, from 2007, and I'll play them in chronological order. This is from February 10, 2007.
There will be a praying president, not a religious one. But I will fool the people, says the Lord. I will fool the people. Yes, I will. God says, the one that is chosen shall go in, and they shall say, he has hot blood. For the Spirit of God says, yes, he may have hot blood, but he will bring the walls of protection on this country in a greater way, and the economy of this country shall change rapidly, says the Lord of hosts. Listen to the word of the Lord. God says, I will put at your helm for 2 terms a president that will pray, but he will not be a praying president when he starts. I will put him in office, and then I will baptize him with the Holy Spirit and my power, says the Lord of hosts.
So there you have it. Obviously, the fact that he's going to bring the walls of protection on the country is an interesting thing, as well as saying that he will have hot blood, which I think anyone would use to describe Trump, whether for or against him. And that is in February 2007. I'm going to flip to the next one, and I'm going to let you see what website I'm getting it from, so that gives some credit to Yeshua Kodesh. This is from his website.
This that shall take place shall be the most unusual thing, a transfiguration, a going into the marketplace, if you wish, into the news media, where Time magazine will have no choice but to say what I want them to say. Newsweek, what I want to say. The View, what I want to say. Trump shall become a trumpet, says the Lord. Trump shall become a trumpet. I will raise up the Trump to become a trumpet, and Bill Gates to open up the gate of a financial realm for the church, says the Lord.
So there you have it. That was the April 4th one, as you can see on the screen, and it certainly, well, he mentions Trump by name there, so nothing ambiguous about that. A couple of things that had put me into two minds. Well, one is the date 2007, which might seem strange because it's a good 10 years before the election in 2000, well, at the very end of 2016, so almost 10 years. And what concerned me was that Clement Klement might have been prophesying about 2008, and one of the reasons that's the case is for many elections Donald Trump made it sound like he was going to be running. In fact, he may have thought he was going to run in that each particular election, and then at some point he'd say, actually no, I'm not going to do it. And many thought he would never run, that he was just doing that for publicity basically. So 2007, there was an election in 2008, but to be fair to Clement Klement, if we look on Wikipedia, we can see what Donald Trump did in that particular year, 2008. And I'll just shrink this so you can see it easily. That'll be better. It talks about which years he ran or gave that impression that he was running for president. And here we go, early political career. Trump considered the idea of running for president in 1988, 2004 and 2012, and obviously did run in 2016. So in fairness to Clement Klement, 2008 he never even considered running. It wasn't a year, and I remember reading that elsewhere, that there was that gap year where he didn't consider running. So therefore there'd be no reason for him to specifically think it was for the following year, and either way he doesn't state that it was for that specific year, 2008. So that was my one concern. The other, and I've pretty much explained it away, I think. The other one was pretty obvious, this reference to Bill Gates. That hasn't happened yet. It also doesn't have a date, it's in the same sentence, but doesn't mean it's got to happen at the same time. I could also mention that he talks about Trump coming in as not a praying president, but becoming a praying president. That I'm not aware has happened. It could have happened, and I'm unaware of it. But again, in fairness, they could both happen, and obviously, if even just one of them happened, that would greatly will give me much greater confidence in this, especially if you suddenly heard Bill Gates was giving money to the church, or that it's a bit more difficult. You know my suspicion of politicians. If I heard that Donald Trump was praying, but you know, if you heard him praying and it was obvious that something had happened to him, then that would be a different story. So absolutely not closing the door on this. I think we do have to look at details that are given in prophecy and not try and believe that they're of God if they're not. But the door's still open here. A couple of things could happen, and that would make this, particularly the one on the screen, look really, really obviously a true prophecy. So those are the three that I believe have mostly affected, influenced people who've been looking at prophecies in the run-up to the election, which I was doing. These three stood out to me. There are others, the likes of Trey Smith, for example, who did a movie. However, I think it's based mostly on what Dr. Wallnow had said, and of course he's added his own things in, just like I'm adding in, but everything I'm showing you is just my commentary on existing material. So I hope you've learned something about the prophecies leading up. I'm mostly impressed by the ones where it's confident, it's going to influence the people's ministries, careers if Donald Trump doesn't win, and I think that gives it a lot of credibility. So what do you think? I'm going to leave that to you. If you want to leave comments below saying what you believe, or if you agree or disagree with anything I've said. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.